and welcome to workshop number 2, where we're going to be looking at zines and collaborations. Now, zines are such a great thing to be doing because they're so easy for you to do from your home. So you could either print things off and stick it together quite physically, or you could use InDesign, which is what I use to create mine. And you don't even need a new project to start doing this. Maybe you've had a project that you wanted to create a book but you didn't really have time for. A zine would be a great way for you to put this together and sequence it in the same way that you would for a book. The reason I created a zine was because I wanted a physical book to represent my work and my campaign and like collate the whole project together. So I'm going to go over that a bit more and how I put that together as throughout the video. Another point in the video is collaborations. And my first collaboration, the first people that I reached out to when I was creating Restyled was White Rose Shops in Nottingham. I reached out in my initial research stage because I knew that I would needed somebody to work with to provide the second-hand clothes. I wanted to make sure that I used a Nottingham-based charity, and they were such a great organisation. They were on our Nottingham High Street, everybody knew about them. So for me to collaborate with them was like a dream for this project. And I did communicate with other stores and I did ask them, but nobody had the same level of enthusiasm as me for the project as White Rose did. So I obviously then went on to use their clothes within my project with the long-term goal of my images being in their store, which would have like long-term and short-term benefits, because the short-term I could borrow their clothes, but in the long-term my images were in their stores, which was a constant promotion of my work. And then I also, during the research stage, reached out to a graphic design student at Birmingham City University called Darby, and she was the one that inevitably helped me condense my project down into a zine. And I initially reached out to her just wanting a logo and a slogan for the project. I researched how I wanted it doing, but I reached out so early on in the project that she developed with me, so her design style developed with my photography style, which meant that it all like gelled together quite perfectly. And it wasn't actually till later on in the project that I came up with the idea for the zine, so she had to adapt her design style to that. And that is kind of when we fell together and worked really well. So a zine is a self-published book. What I loved was the simple creative style of it. And a good place for you to go when it opens back up is Nottingham Zine Library. So they have a collection that people submit their zine and then they house them all in there. And you can check out their Insta. You can see so many of the zines on there, and you can have a look at who's submitted work. And you can spend hours in the zine library. You can just sit and look through creatives' projects, and it's just a great place to get inspiration, not only to create a zine, but to create your own project. This was the final zine of mine. The hardest thing to do when you're creating anything is to learn how to sequence your work. So I had no idea how I wanted to do it. But what I initially started to do was get a piece of A4 paper and stick my images on it, how I wanted them to look and which images I wanted to sit next to which, so that the layout of the zine was going to be how I wanted it. So that was like making a basic plan of a paper book. Once I'd got that down, I looked at how I wanted to bind it, and I used saddle stitch binding. I don't know whether you can see it. So this is what I'm saying about constantly questioning your workflow. I wanted that to relate back to the garment workers, hand stitching all our clothes, which we're going to pay £2 for a t-shirt for. So the constant idea of relating back to the fast fashion, not aggressively, flowed into the zine, which is why I'm really happy with this binding choice. But there's so many different ways that you could bind a zine. There's wire binding, you could get it bound professionally, you can order them online and they all come bound together, or a folding method. I'm not sure how you do it, but it's something that you could probably look into. And you also really need to think about your paper type. So my images are printed on shiny paper because I thought that was the most effective way of displaying them. Like, for me to print them on matte wouldn't have done them justice. But it was when it came to the front cover that I found it really difficult to pick, because I don't know if you can see, but this is like a really textured cover and this one's really shiny. So I made the decision that the final one, I wanted it to be the textured one to relate it back to kind of like an art-based creative project. That was when Darby really came into it and sent me this print, and I never asked for this. It was something that she created, and this is why I'm saying our collaboration from the very start meant that she ended up creating this rather than it being rushed. She understood my project wholly in order to produce this without me requesting it. We were like fully transparent with each other which is what you need to do to produce an effective collaboration, and that led me on to seeing like that she produced these kind of things for my work, and I then went on to create tote bags which I sold at the exhibition, which was quite exciting because my project was like living on through people like carrying things about in my tote bags, which was quite nice. That collaboration really made Restyled what it is, especially within Nottingham. Like, we need to understand that the creative community within Nottingham is so small that if we all work together we can create something so strong. And reaching out to each other, everybody that I reached out to within Nottingham replied to me, and even if it was a no, like, what's the worst that they can say is no. It felt really good, especially like all the models that work with me. I worked with over 45 models that all came and collaborated with me because they saw the drive behind the project and they wanted to be involved, which I'm really grateful for. And you won't know who wants to be involved or what longevity the project has until you start reaching out. That's where White Rose came in. After I'd had all these collaborations and I'd seen it all come together, and then I went to White Rose with my final project and said, look, this is what I've got, and for me borrowing the clothes from you, like, I'm willing to give you my images to put in the stores. And I love going into the market square and seeing my images in the shops. Like, that's a dream come true for me, and that's all down to collaborations. So in the next video we're going to ask ourselves what's next and how we turn these images from just a creative project into our portfolio and into inevitably getting us work off the back of it.